Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder as I head out for a walk and deliver an episode to you while I stroll around. I'm Brendan Riley. Good morning, listeners. It's a lovely day here in suburban Chicago, and I'm out for a Saturday morning walk. We have a game day coming up. I don't know what we're going to play. I think we're going to do an exit game for sure. But other than that, the sky's the limit. Actually, we're going to want to pick some 6-player games because we have 6 of us there, and then some 5-player games after that. So sky isn't really the limit. The player count of 5 players is the limit, but we'll see what we see. So it is also September 2nd, which means that it's time to do a Top of the Stack. For those of you new to the podcast, Top of the Stack is an episode where I talk about the last month's gameplay and make a plan for next month's gameplay. This month, of course, I'll be talking about August 2023, talking about what I played, what I plan to play next month, and it's going to be a good time. It was a good month for gaming. As always, I'll start with some general stats. Over the course of the month, I played 81 different gameplays. Remember, that includes asynchronous online plays, which is a big percentage of my gameplays. I also played 45 different games, so 81 plays of 45 different games. My year total is 684 plays of 245 games. So, doing pretty good. 684 is a nice chunk on the way toward 1,000 plays for the year. I think I've got a decent chance at making that. That'd be pretty fun. I don't know why 1,000 sounds good, but it seems pretty great. My shelf of opportunity. This is the list of games that I own that I haven't played. Ideally, that list would be going down because I would be playing the games that I've purchased. August, because of Gen Con, was a month where I got some new games, which means that I went from 56 games on my shelf of opportunity up to 61. So not really making progress on the old shelf of opportunity. Still having fun though. My collection size, I was trying to have it reduced. Not doing so well on that either. We went from 562 games up to 568. So collection is growing. My most played game this month in person was Frosthaven with 4 plays. That's been really fun. We've been trying to make sure we get a play every week with the family, particularly now that we've got a countdown going. My daughter goes away to college next year, so we have 1 year to get as much of Frosthaven played as we can before we have to decide, are we playing it without her, or does it go on to some sort of like decade-long arc where we're only going to play when she's home and when my son is home. So I think she sort of resigned herself to the idea that we would play without her. I think she's sad about that too. But anyway, so yeah, we played Frosthaven 4 times. We also got our butts kicked in the last 2 games, which was not super fun. And so I think we're gonna notch it down 1 level of difficulty for a bit, just to get some confidence and some fun back in the play. Online, I played Through the Ages and Applejack each 4 times. Those are both pretty fun. Applejack, I like it fine as an online game. If someone had it at like a game night and wanted to play it, I would play it there. But I'm not really jazzed by it. Like, I think it's fine. It's a good tactical game. There's a level of strategy that you can build in there, but you're limited by the choices you have of the tiles. And so, kind of like Uwe Rosenberg's other lighter games, I find that most of those I like okay, but I'm not super jazzed about. So that's Applejack. And Through the Ages, of course, continues to be one of my most played games. I don't think I've hit 200 plays yet, but I'm pretty close. All right, so Top of the Stack, as I mention almost every episode, because I like to cite ideas that come from other people. Top of the Stack is the idea of it comes from the podcast of Nonsensical Gamers, which was a podcast that I listened to a lot right when I started gaming and doing this work. And they had a thing where each time they would check in and say, what have you been playing lately? And what do you plan to play next time? And when they did the plan to play next time, they'd say, what's on the top of your stack? Like, they have a stack of games to play. What's at the top? So I stole that idea, and that's what I used to call the monthly plan. This month, I did not do well ticking games off the top of my stack. I had 4 to play: Revive, Trismegistus, Vagrant Song, and Time Pirates. Time Pirates being the novelty choice there. Revive and Vagrant Song being the brand new game choices, and Trismegistus being a top 50 choice that I'm trying to get played because I want to play all my top 50 games before the end of the year. Along those lines, I did not get Trismegistus to the table. I did not get Vagrant Song to the table. Neither of those really got in the position where I was trying. Revive is a sad story for gamers, and a sad story of bad memory. So you're excited to hear this, I'm sure. So I generally will make plans to play big games at my game club well in advance in order to try to get people to try them or to get sort of in the position where we can play them. And so I arranged with a friend a couple weeks ago. I said, hey, do you want to try Revive? And he said, sure. Hey, can I bring my friend Brian? And I said, sure. So we've got 3 seats already taken, right? Fast forward a couple weeks and I'm planning, and I remembered that I asked my friend, but I forgot that he asked if he could bring a friend. So then I asked another friend, George, if he wanted to play. He said, sure. He said, do we have another seat available? And I said, oh, it's just Joshua and I and George. So sure, bring another friend. And so George and Joshua both showed up with extra friends, as I had told them they should. And because I'm not a jerk, I decided to sit out so they could all play, because I had told them I could all play. So I have seen my game played, but I have not played it. So that's the sad story of Revive, as it was played on our table, or I should say not played on our table, or not played on my table. Oh well, in September perhaps. Before this, I had 70 games that I've tried this year for the first time. And I had some new ones this month as well, actually quite a few. I'm just going to run through the list. You'll hear more about these as I get to them in the quick review episodes that I like to do. So the games I tried this month were Ra, After Us, Dungeons & Dragons Bedlam in Neverwinter, Everdell Farshore, Llama, Time Pirates, Irish Gauge, Kites, Forbidden Jungle, Woodcraft, Letter Jam, Mother of Frankenstein, Nana, also known as Trio, and Sagrada Artisans. That brings me up to 84 new games played this year. I'm going to crest well over 100 unless something slows down dramatically, which I don't see why it would. So it was a great month for gaming, really fun. I did get to try one expansion this month that I hadn't tried before, and that was the Dream Eaters expansion from Arkham Horror, the card game. My son and my wife and I started a new campaign. We played a couple missions on the Dream Eaters. I did get 5 games out of the dust this month. The first one was Spirit Island, which I hadn't played for 2 years, 6 months, and 13 days. And even though it had been a long time, I liked it even more than the last time I played. So every time I play, I like Spirit Island a little bit more. It's a good game that I find really intriguing, and I can see why people make it a lifestyle game. There's a lot of depth in the game, and there's a lot of really interesting cooperation in terms of how you work together to make your powers play off each other. I like that the game lets people take actions in whatever order they want. Creates a lot of decision space, but also a lot of flexibility to really maximize the effect of your powers. Overall, Spirit Island is great. This time I played the green one, the one about forests overgrowing the trees or something like that. It was a great time. Next up is Awkward Guests. Awkward Guests was 1 year, 3 months, and 27 days dusty, so almost 1 year and 4 months. It feels like I play that more often than I do because I use that game in one of my classes at school, so I get to see people play it, which makes me feel like I'm playing it, even though I didn't actually play it. When we did play it, though, we had a great time, except that, boy, my wife is good at that game, which is awesome. But we were finishing a round, and if you haven't played it, it's a mystery game, and you get clues each round, and at the end of the round, you can take a guess or not. So we got to the end of the round, and I was thinking, if I get a couple good cards next round, I'll take a guess. And my wife took a guess and won the game. I was thinking about maybe I'd take a guess next round, and she's like, boom, done. Which turns out happens a lot. I looked at our records. She's won 66% of the games of Awkward Guess that we play, and that's a large player count game, so we're almost always playing with 5, 6, 7 people. And yeah, so turns out I'm bad at that, and she's great at it, which is awesome. Awkward Guess, really fun. Next up is 10 Penny Parks. This one would count as barely dusty, 1 year, 1 month, and 21 days. It also has the weird idea of being dusty even though I didn't own it. Right, I count a game as dusty if I haven't played it in that time, and that means sometimes when I'm calling a game dusty, it isn't even a game I owned, right? It's a metaphorical dust that I'm sweeping off. And in this case, Tenpenny Parks is a game I played a couple of times. Here's some bragging with Nate Linhart, the designer, who is sometime regular at my board game club. And I was very excited to play the game a few times with him. And so I finally got around to picking up my own copy in June or July maybe. And so then we got us to the table with the family, and that was the incident of getting it played. If you haven't played it, it's a great tile layer. It's got this really quirky thing where tiles can never be next to each other. The closest they can be is diagonal. So it really challenges your thinking about how you're going to place your tiles. Really fun game. Nice quick play, maybe an hour and a half at the most. Sometimes a little faster. Tenpenny Parks. It's great. Next up is Horrified. This was Dusty 1 year and 9 months and 25 days. Like Awkward Guests, this is a game I use in my board game class, and so we do have a little bit of the different effects of people playing the game around me, making it feel like I've played it. But in fact, I haven't played it since, almost 2 years. It's great. It's sort of like Pandemic, but less scary. And it's a little easy if you're only playing with 2 monsters, which we did because 3 of the 5 players were brand new to the game and hadn't played it before. So we're like, yeah, we'll play with it on 2 monsters. 3 monsters is more fun, I think, but also much harder. And I guess introducing it to people, it's more fun if they have a good time. So that's Horrified. The Universal Monsters is the one we played. And then finally, this game, I had to estimate because the last time I played it was before I started tracking games, but like not a little bit before, like shocking drastically before I started tracking games. And this is Rummikub. Rummikub is a tile laying game based loosely around gin rummy, in which you have a series of tiles that represent values of like playing cards, and they're in colors which kind of represent suits, and you're making runs and straights just like you do in rummy. The couple differences are, one, there are these wild tiles that you can put in that represent a card, or a tile, but you can steal them by placing the correct tile that belongs where they go there and taking the tile out and then using the wild tile as anything. And then a big part of the game is remaking the different arrangements or tiles that people have put out. So the way the game works, you're putting out your tiles in runs and straights, and when you put out more runs and straights, you can then share them with other people and use their runs and straights to put out more of your tiles. And your goal is to get rid of all your tiles. On a turn where you can't put out anything, you have to take a tile instead. And you're not allowed to put any tiles out until you can put 50 points worth on the board at once. So it turns out it's really fun. It's been getting a lot of play at our game club. At least once a week or every week somebody is pulling it out. It's kind of the same group playing it all the time. But other people have started playing it because they're reminded, oh yeah, this game's pretty good. So that's Rummikub. All right. So lots of great games dusted off. Had a good time with that. My 10x10 challenge. I'm kind of doing 2 actually. I'm doing an asynchronous one and a synchronous one, but with the same list of people, which is designers. As you'll recall, the 10x10 challenge is where you try to play, normally you try to play 10 games 10 times each over the course of the year. For my approach, what I tried to do is I picked designers, and I want to play 10 games by each of those designers 10 times over the course of the year. And then I decided to track both asynchronous plays and synchronous plays. On the asynchronous plays, I'm doing pretty well. I have completed 10 plays of Vladimir Suchy games, Reiner Knizia games, Inka Brand games, Tom Lehmann games, Vlaada Chvátil games, and Uwe Rosenberg games. I've only played 4 Martin Wallace games asynchronously. I've played 4 Phil Walker Harding games asynchronously, and I've played 4 Elizabeth Hargrave games asynchronously. So a little bit more to do there, but not a ton. And I think that I'm gonna really try to power through and finish those. On the table, however, I'm doing much more poorly. I've played 5 Martin Wallace games. I've played 7 Vladimir Suchy, 6 Reiner Knizia, only 2 Inka Brand games. I picked Inka Brand without really thinking through the ramifications of picking her, because while I've played a lot of online games of her, I don't actually own any of her games, and I encounter them very rarely, so my ability to play her games is really hampered. Basically, those are both exit games, the ones that I marked. Phil Walker Harding is at 3. That one's kind of sad because I have a lot of Phil Walker Harding games. I think if I make an effort, I could finish his. Tom Lehmann is at 4. That one's also a little sad. I have several Tom Lehmann games, including Res Arcana and The City, both of which I think are really good, and Roll for the Galaxy, which I think is really good. And I have some Roll for the Galaxy expansions that I haven't played that I think sound really cool. So Tom Lehman, I really should be doing better. Elizabeth Hargrave, I picked because my wife and I really like Wingspan, but we haven't been playing it much lately. So I'm hoping maybe we can get back into it here. There have been a couple campaigns that people have released. Maybe I'll download one of those and that'll get us a little impetus to finish it. But now that we're playing Sagrada Artisans, it feels like that's really where we're going. And then finally, Vlada Chvátil, I've only played 2 games in person. Uwe Rosenberg, I've only played 2 in person. Karl Chudik, I've played 2 in person. But I have completed the asynchronous Karl Chudik. I forgot to mention him. I've completed his asynchronous ones as well. My H index, which is it's number of games that you've played the same number of times. So like if you have 4 games that you've played 4 times each, your H index is 4. Make sense? So my H index is 11 right now, including asynchronous plays. And those games are Through the Ages, Res Arcana, My City, Frosthaven, Gaia Project, Arkham Horror the card game, Ark Nova, Applejack, Motainai, Quicks, and Age of Civilization. I'm making progress on my 52 game challenge. You remember this is a list of 52 prompts, and you're supposed to fulfill each prompt by playing a particular game. So, for example, this month I fulfilled 3 of the prompts. It's slowing down because at the beginning of the year I was getting like 8 to 10 in a month because they're easy to do. Like I sort of fulfill them incidentally. Now we're at the point where in order for me to fulfill them, I really need to focus and like specifically choose, okay, I'm gonna play a game that meets this criteria so that I can fulfill one of the requirements. So I only got 3 this month. Once again, I wasn't really trying, and the fact that I only got 3 while I wasn't trying and there's still 11 left says that I really need to, for the last few months here of the year, I really need to focus on specifically completing these. But number 6, play your favorite prompt from 2021. Looking through the 2021 list, I picked a game with Easter eggs, and my winning thing was here, Awkward Guests. In Awkward Guests, they have these little tokens that represent which detective you are, and at first glance they appear to be just like little different characters, but if you are paying attention, you'll notice that they represent classic detectives like Columbo and Miss Marple, and so playing as one of those is fun. Second, play a game with a round tracker fitting to the theme. Like I said, I haven't talked about it yet on the show, but I played Ra, the classic Reiner Knizia auction game, and in Ra, the round tracker is a little boat that looks like the boat to the afterlife. That's to do with the god, and Ra is all about sort of making sacrifices to the gods and the favor of the gods and so on. So it fits the story really well, and that's why I picked it as the game with a round tracker fitting to the theme. And then finally, play a game that takes place in your favorite season. Now, I've often said my favorite season is autumn. One of my favorite things about autumn is apple picking, so I've decided that Applejack is a game that takes place in my favorite season. I don't know if it really does, but I'm calling it and saying that it does. So there you go, Applejack. Which the first time I played that was in May, but this is the month I decided, so I'm counting it this month as having finished it. So I'm up to 39 of the 52 prompts, which means that I have 12, 13, 14 to go. So looking forward to finishing those out at 14 to go, and I have 4 months left of the year. That means I need to finish roughly 3 or 4 a month. So I should look at those carefully and kind of plan out what games I might play along those lines. My painting challenge did not go great this month. I was planning to finish the Nazi minis from Hellboy and then maybe start on the minis from Cerebria. I did not complete that goal, and I did, however, paint 1 mini this month. My son started a new D&D campaign, and so he made a mini for his new character. I think what he does is he goes on Hero Forge and he builds the 3D model of the mini on Hero Forge, and then you can buy the STL for the 3D model, and then he prints it on our printer, and then he gives it to me and I paint it. And so that's what he did. So I did get that done, but I did not make any progress on the Hellboy minis. I will do that next month for sure. Finishing up, the collection size, like I said at the beginning of the month, it was 562 games. I picked up 3 games at Gen Con. I got Revive, Vagrant Song, and Sherlock Holmes and the Baker Street Irregulars, which is a puzzle game built around comic books. Then I added one more game, Sagrada Artisans, which I had backed on Kickstarter, and that came in and fulfilled I think it arrived while I was at Gen Con, actually. Then I had 3 more games show up, Everdell Far Shore, Apollo, and Kittens in a Blender. All 3 of those games also made their way onto my list. And finally, I was at the local Half Price Books, and on their stock of clearance games, they had copies of In the Year of the Dragon from Stefan Feld for $10. And while I didn't want to buy it when they were charging $22 for it, at $10, I was like, yes, I will give In the Year of the Dragon a try for $10. So that was those were my, oh, and actually, now that I look at it, I think the Board Game Geek said I have 568 games in my collection. My tally here says 570, so I'm not sure where the mismatch is. Maybe I've missed something, but I usually use the Board Game Geek tally as the final one. So 568 is the number that's there. I already mentioned playing the Dream Eaters in Arkham Horror. I haven't talked about my top 50 challenge in a while. As you remember, every other year I do a top 50 board games of all time list, and I update it. The last time I updated it was the beginning of 2022, so I'm just about up for doing it again here at the beginning of 2024 or the end of 2023. And I try to, in the time in between those two, play all 50 of my top 50 games. It seems like if I have 50 games that I think are the best games, and I play 1,000 games in a year, I ought to play those 50, right? Or at least every other year. So the games, as of the end of 2022, I had played 38 of those 50 games, which left 12 to be played. Conveniently, there's 12 months in this year, and so I had 12 to play. I have played Altiplano, Last Will, Shipyard, Five Tribes, and Clank. I have not played Netrunner, Terraforming Mars, Cerebria, Vampire: The Eternal Struggle, A Touch of Evil, Terra Mystica, or Trismegistus. So I will be trying to play those 7 games as we race toward the end of the year. I'm not sure I will get all 7 played because that's a lot in 4 months when I haven't managed to do it in 8, but we'll see. Finally, top of the stack, September. These are the games that I plan to play in September. You'll remember that 3 of the 4 games I played last month were games I really wanted to play and did not get played, so I'm putting them all back on the list. Vagrant Song, Terraforming Mars, and Revive. They all roll over to September, and I will get them all played this month, come hell or high water, which means I have one more to choose. You'll remember the last game that was in the original batch that I played was Time Pirates, which was this silly little game from Alan Moon that I got played and got off of my shelf of opportunity. That left a space open, so I'm going to play Hunted Woad Ridge, which is the newest game from Gabe. Gabe, who runs the Board Game Design Lab podcast. I can't remember his last name right now, but I have the other 2 Hunted games and I like them, and this is the 3rd one that just arrived in June, I think, via the mail. So what have you been playing? Head over to Board Game Geek Guild 3269 and share your thoughts on your top of the stack. There is already a thread there, I believe, and let us know what you've been playing and what you plan to play next month. If you'd like to get a hold of me, you can send me an email, brendan@rattleboxgames.com. You can send me a message on Board Game Geek. Wombat929 is my username there. That is actually probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. Or you could send me a message or a game invite on Board Game Arena or Yucata. In both places, I'm Wombat929, and I'd love to play a game with you. So thanks for joining me for another month of gaming and game podcasts. I'm looking forward to talking with you more and seeing you on the game table. Thanks for joining me. I hope your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.